Hello, everybody. This is Two Guys, Five Movies. This is one of your co-hosts, Chris Gaspari.
This is Frank Pelicone.
And tonight we are joined by first time ever special guest, Zeke Lawrence. And how are you doing, Zeke?
Doing great.
Good.
Excited to be part of it.
Awesome.
Glad to have you.
Yes. You're one of the few that gets referenced occasionally on the podcast due to shared history and love of movies, and has not been on yet, so we're glad to finally have you on an episode. And it's amazing to me too how often Frank actually ends up referencing some movie somewhere, and how you're involved either in watching it with him, or how it's something that happened at Chuck's house back in the day of watching something or going to the movies together or something like that. And it's amazing how often you actually do pop up in Frank's movie history and stuff like that. So and you've been a large supporter of ours since the beginning, and we really appreciate that a lot. So tonight we are going to be talking, it's kind of like a second watch episode here tonight as a bonus episode. So we're going to be talking about 1992's Batman Returns, directed by Tim Burton, starring Michael Keaton, Danny DeVito, Michelle Pfeiffer, Christopher Walken. And so I'm going to turn it over to our guest first. Zeke, how long has it been since you watched this movie, and what did you think of it in rewatching it?
I had thought for sure I had seen this more recently than I actually had. I started watching it and I could not remember any of it, but then there were glimpses that came back to me as I watched it, all the way through. So it must have been when it was first released at the theater that I had seen it. It was a completely different movie than I expected, or that I even remembered. I still love Michael Keaton because I've seen the original Batman multiple times through the years, but never this one as a rewatch. So it was definitely a different thought pattern as, God, however many years ago. Was that 30 years?
Yeah.
Something like that since that has been released?
Almost, yep.
So a completely different mindset on life, and rewatching it, it was still enjoyable, but different than what I had experienced when I had watched it when I was young. Michael Keaton, still the best. The rest of them, I'm not as sure. I was looking back, when I rewatched it, it was cool seeing Paul Rubens in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Christopher Walken was himself, as always, in every other movie. I'm not a Michelle Pfeiffer fan, so it really didn't matter that she was even in it. But then when I looked up who else they had playing or had wanted to cast for the part, she was probably the best bet.
Yeah, I
agreed. Was Danny DeVito and go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I think I looked it up too about who was going to play some of these characters, and the only one I saw on the list for Catwoman that I thought could have worked, considering how cartoony it was maybe Madonna.
Yeah,
that's the only other one that I could see. Everybody else was too
Annette
serious.
Bening, no. Yeah. The list that they had for the Penguin was the only one I could think of would have been Danny DeVito. Mm-hmm. The rest of them would have been horrible. Tim Burton. It was a beautiful movie for a soundstage movie.
Yeah.
I think he really captured what he needed to capture. Mm-hmm. It was obvious that he really didn't want to do it. From what the way I looked at it, it was kind of he just did it just to do it. A lot, I guess, from reading about it, a lot of the backlash was about the violence and all, but I don't think it was nearly as violent as the original.
Agreed.
It's more sexually repugnant than violent.
I agree with that. I found a lot of that unnerving.
Mm-hmm.
The Danny DeVito interaction with her, and it was disgusting.
Yes. Yeah.
But I mean, it was supposed to be, I guess.
Yeah.
Trying to what we were talking about earlier as regards like a younger person watching that movie now, I don't think they would be able to grasp what was actually going on. I think we, at our age, we still can, because we've seen those older movies and we could see what Tim Burton was going for with the noirish type thing. I don't think a younger generation would be interested in what he was going for with that.
Yeah.
There's no more newspaper boys or any of that. So I don't think a younger person today, like my son, they wouldn't understand and would ask more questions than even enjoy the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's lost on, I think our generation was probably the last that would be able to enjoy that type of movie.
It's interesting you say that, because I think about that sometimes when I watch movies like this and think, how does this play out the kid that's, I mean, I was, 14 or 15, I guess, when this movie came out. 15. And I saw it in the theater, and I mean, I liked it when I was a kid, but, slightly different opinion now. But yeah, I don't know how a kid in the same age range would look at that movie. It's all over the place too. So it's you don't really have one central theme that you're kind of, I don't know, fixating on, or it doesn't have the same tone throughout. It jumps from cartoony to violent to creepy to, I don't know, in kind of borderline inane at times.
Yeah. Almost silly.
Yeah, there's times.
And a lot of it.
I mean, you got that shit with
like I was saying, it was like Tim Burton didn't care.
Right. Well, you got the shit with the Penguin, rising from the dead to take his last attack on Batman and pulling the baby mobile umbrella out and I pulled a silly one, and then just dying. It's, I don't know. I think that's a good encapsulation of the entire movie.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so it all feels like, because I know,
I don't know how Christmassy it was.
It's got Christmas trees and presents and shit. So
that's it. There's snow.
There is snow.
Mm.
Yeah, I know a little bit of how Frank feels about this movie. We exchanged a few texts on it, but it's it sounds like, after what you said, it feels like we're probably all in agreement that this doesn't really hold up very well, and probably even not a very good movie. Particularly if you're comparing it to the first movie, because I watched the first movie in the past month just preparing for this again, and that movie still really holds up to me. I really like it a lot, and this movie is not that movie at all. I agree with you, Zeke. I think that I'm not a Michelle Pfeiffer fan myself. I don't think that I liked her better as Selena the secretary, I guess, but it still all felt too forced. Mm-hmm. All of it, her performance, the character. Penguin, you've already talked about to some degree, the two of you. It's this weird mix between, Frank, how did you describe it the other day? It was in terms of that character.
I mean, you've got, it's three different things rolled into one, because you've got some of the kitsch of the 60s serial rolled into it, and then it's this ultra violent, grimdark 90s comic book interpretation of the character, and then Frank Reynolds from Always Sunny in Philadelphia for good measure. All those things together, and at any given time in a scene, it could change. Yeah. I mean, he's It's probably my favorite thing in the movie, honestly, is DeVito's Penguin. Like, I think it's the most interesting performance and the most interesting part of the movie because, like, he's fucking obscene, like, so many times. And he's, I don't know, like, those teeth with, like, the blood and, like, the fish pieces, like, stained on them. And then turning around and talking about, like, the sexual innuendo in this movie is, I don't know, like almost too much, like sometimes.
Oh, it's too much. I think it's
especially
way too
especially
much.
Penguin, like every woman he's talking about, like it's every woman there's a sexual innuendo that is like very, very aggressive, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't even know what was the
Yeah.
rating on this at the time. I
It's
didn't look.
PG-13,
Is it?
I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
PG-13.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So apparently they got a lot of flack for it.
Well, I can imagine.
The PG-13 rating. Yeah. The innuendo and the violence. Like I said, the violence I don't think was anywhere near as bad as the original.
No.
The bomb blowing up and Batman pushing him into the sewer. That was probably the most violent with one of the henchmen.
Yeah.
The bomb blowing up. Well, other than that, it really wasn't that bad.
But Batman murders like at least probably a dozen people in this movie, either on purpose or just by accident. Like there's that close to the scene you're talking about with the henchman in the sewer is the clown henchman with the flamethrower or like the fire spitter guy outside the department store. And Batman just flips the Batmobile around and lights the man on fire with his exhaust. And he's just sitting there like burning and dying in the middle of the street. Yeah. It's like, man, that's a little harsh there, Batman. And then to juxtapose that with, and I agree,
like confused between Batman and Superman.
I like
Superman's not supposed to kill, but Batman does.
Right. Well, Batman's not supposed to kill either. That's his whole point. Like he's the, I don't know. And I like Keaton's interpretation of Batman. It's just there's so little of it in this movie because most of it's about, you spend the whole first 20 minutes on the origin story of like Penguin and then Selina Kyle, and Batman's just barely in the whole thing. So I don't know.
Batman is Batman. Because I watched this twice. I felt I needed to watch it again because the first time I was drinking at night when I watched it. The second time I watched it sober, but I made sure to keep note. Batman shows up for that one scene early on, and then the second scene, the second time he shows up is basically, I think it's 56 minutes into the movie. So the whole first hour of the movie almost is mostly Batman-less. You get Bruce Wayne, but he does not show up until about halfway through this movie, and it doesn't feel like in a good way he's not showing up where you're anticipating him. It just feels like a slog with the backstories of Penguin and Catwoman taking far too long until you actually get to anything.
I have a minor defense of that, and I don't think it works. Like I think you're right, but I think I understand why that happens. Because you look at, and I think Chris, you and I talked about this the other day. It's like there was no template for how to make a sequel to a movie like that was the number one movie in the country for whatever, like X number of weeks in 1989. It was basically a cultural phenomenon. So you don't want to tell in any part Batman's story again, right? Like, because you've already told that story a couple years before. But I guess like he didn't understand that telling too much of your villain's backstory it just confuses what the movie's about. And then like when you have Batman actually being Batman, it just, I don't know, it just feels like a really like fractured movie throughout. Like it's like stopping and starting all the time and completely reintroducing elements that don't connect to anything else for a lot of it.
And this went through extensive rewrites by a few different people. So from basically the origin of the story until the final product. And I think that probably has a lot to do with that fractured nature of the story, because they didn't even add in the Penguins. It wasn't until like the last kind of few rewrites by, I think it was this Daniel Waters guy that wrote Heathers, that Burton liked. It wasn't until that the Penguin even had a real plot at all. Like he was just out there doing shit for no reason really. And so yeah, I think that fractured nature probably is on the script level. And I think Zeke's right. Burton didn't care. And as much as I love Michael Keaton, I feel like Michael Keaton doesn't care so much in this movie. Like there's scenes where it's almost like he's acting like Bruce Wayne acts like this in the first movie as well, like Keaton's Bruce Wayne, but he has this kind of, a lot of times it's with the Joker character when he's Bruce Wayne, where he's kind of like perplexed or confused or kind of giving like a, what the fuck is going on here? But it's, he feels like he's doing that through most of this movie. And it's almost like he's wondering, what the fuck am I doing in this movie, or what the fuck this movie is. It's, it feels like he's just going through the
Johnny
motions.
Dangerously face going on the whole time.
Right.
Yes, that's right.
Like Michael Keaton has that look.
Uh-huh.
Like that was his look. I'm confused, but I'm thinking about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Johnny Dangerously.
I love Michael Keaton for that.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I mean, but that was his signature.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's how he does his eyes and his eyebrows.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's great. I mean, he did phone it in. He did phone it in. Mm-hmm. His performance, I think. But he did his job and he earned his money.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think he was legitimately confused by the scenes. Down. I think he was legitimately confused at times by what was going on in the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of his performance.
I felt the same way.
So Zeke, I do want to go back to something you said, which is,
if they would have just had Catwoman.
Yeah, you're right.
That's it. If they would have just had Catwoman being the story, or just Penguin, it could have been a whole different and great movie. It was just too many people. Well,
because the problem is the Max Shrek character like tying everything together. Mm-hmm. It's just too much, and Walken is so, I don't know, Walken in it. Like you never even can really hate him, honestly. It's just he's very honest about the fact that he's an asshole. You know, he's just trying to do what's best for him and his idiot kid, and all these weirdos keep getting in his way. But then he is always like overcoming the weirdos. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's very strange. Like that. I mean, I get the point of that character and like kind of why it needs to exist. But even that was in the original script. A lot of that stuff was written for a Two-Face character that was going to be in it, and then gets adapted over to this Max Shrek character, including like the shock to the face and all those kind of things, which was originally supposed to be the Two-Face turn. Like, and it's just a script that's so cobbled together that it ultimately doesn't. It's kind of incoherent, and it makes an incoherent movie.
Let me ask this question, because I was thinking about this when I was watching it. I'm sitting there watching Christopher Walken act and just thinking like, okay, it's just Christopher Walken. But Christopher Walken wasn't really Christopher Walken in 1992. So how do you think that performance plays without knowing the 30 years of history of Christopher Walken, where he's almost like a caricature of himself, you know, throughout the late 90s and into the 2000s? Like, because he's barely acting in the movie. It's just that whole clip delivery and almost like I'm too cool to be here kind of thing. It's just it's interesting to think about if that, because that might have been my introduction to Christopher Walken. I don't know what I would have seen before then.
Dead Zone.
Yeah, that's probably true. But he's completely different in Dead Zone. Like I think Dead Zone might be his best performance ever, because it's one of the least Christopher Walken performances, because he's actually playing a human being.
But he was already starting to, I think he was already starting to get into it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'm looking up his.
I mean,
I would have seen At Close Range and Biloxi Blues by this point. So I would have seen him in a couple of things that I was too young to really probably fully understand nuance or anything, but so this would have been my first real introduction to Walken, probably, even though I'd seen those by that point. Yeah, I think Zeke's right though. I think you are getting. I think there's some movies before that. There's Walken's starting to get into that. Whatever clip delivery.
Maybe. Let me look up his filmography.
Because let's see.
Yeah, I thought about that before.
I mean, I'd probably seen The Dead Zone 4 or 5 times before I saw this movie, come to think of it. Because The Dead Zone used to be on Channel 54 on Saturday, like it felt like once a month almost.
Uh-huh.
Because it's one of those movies where they could show you a horror movie and you would never have, and it wasn't like they had to cut a huge amount out of it.
Yeah.
Damn, he acted for a long time before this. That's crazy.
He was in quite a few things.
Maybe
but
I'd seen
the funny, like looking back, like how he started doing that form of acting, and it really did seem to start with this Batman appearance.
Yeah,
like it was from this Batman on, he's been doing the same acting.
Yeah, because if you look after this,
all the way through.
Because it's after this, like major movies is True Romance, that part that he has in Wayne's World 2, and then Pulp Fiction, and then The Prophecy are like his main movies after that. And yeah, he's doing this thing. I mean, Pulp Fiction is probably the thing that probably popularizes it the most with that cadence. But
True Romance, well, not popularized on that.
We already known.
Yeah, he's kind of like that in King of New York too.
Pulp Fiction.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He acts like that in King of New York. I'd probably seen that before I saw Batman Returns.
Yeah, I hadn't by that point.
I think I did. I saw King of New York when it first came out on video.
Yeah, same here. I think that View to a Kill and The Dead Zone are probably the 3 that I have seen of his. Because I used to have to watch all the Bond movies.
Yeah. And I love Christopher Walken, but yeah, this guy hasn't acted in 30 years. He's just been doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like even his later movies that I'm looking at here in past 10 years.
I guess when he did the Saturday Night Live skit.
Right. Yeah.
He did that one Saturday Night Live skit, and he's been doing it ever since.
Right. Yep. See, there is something I want to go back to what you were saying about how the movie looks really good for something that's done on a set, because it's one of the things that stood out to me from the very beginning of rewatching this is that one, yes, like it's almost like you can see the sets, which at first I found really disconcerting. And then I texted Frank the other day and I was like, is there any establishing shots in that movie? And Frank, you said there's one in the beginning, you said, right?
So I kind of consider the overhead crane shot where it's coming down from the tree decorating, like over the floating cat head into Shrek's office. But that's the majority of the city that you get is that square and then that office building, because everything takes place around that area.
Yeah, but I agree with you. For a set movie, and Frank and I know Frank likes this aspect of it. It looks really great. I mean, like what they do there, but it also made it feel extremely small to me. Like and like not
it wasn't claustrophobic.
Yeah, and it wasn't grand. Like I think back to the first one where you have the outdoor scene with the pen is the mightier than the sword with the Joker, and you have the outdoor scene with the parade, and all that kind of stuff. And it made it feel like Gotham was a real city, that it like people lived in it. In this movie, it feels like, yeah, you got a bunch of extras for a couple scenes, and otherwise it's these 5 characters just kind of fucking around on rooftops at nighttime, and it felt really small. And to me it made it feel odd and like it didn't have any stakes the entire movie.
Yeah, because the Arctic underworld thing it feels like it's like 20 feet from the main square. Like everything feels like it all radiates just off of that one point. And it's very small, very claustrophobic is a good way to put it. But It's strange though because like
The underwater or the underneath sound bigger than up top.
yeah,
Like Penguin's lair was bigger than the whole of Gotham.
right.
Yeah, right.
Got to have somewhere to keep those penguins.
Yeah,
Because Batman doesn't feel like that, but Batman's a lot movie, right? Like a lot of it is filmed on like a back lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether those outdoor, maybe, but it also, I think another aspect of it is that so much of this takes it's all of it pretty much takes place at night, right? There's no daytime sequences hardly.
Yeah, there's
no daytime.
No, when Bruce Wayne goes to Shrek's meeting with Shrek, that's during the day.
But they're indoors most of it. So
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I guess there is no Penguin going to the graveyard to visit his parents' grave is during the day, isn't it? Because then he goes to the maybe that's at night too. It's hard to tell because everything's so like black and grimy and gothic.
yeah, I think that all the nighttime scenes also make it add on to that idea that it's a set. Like honestly, like, and I'm not. It feels like a fucking Lars von Trier, like Dogma '95 movie in some ways. Like except for rather than tape on the ground, like they just actually have real sets. But that's what it feels like. It feels like Dogville or something.
Yeah.
In terms of like how small the entire thing is, and I just. Yeah, it was really disconcerting to me and really threw me off. And that's why I had to watch it again, because I felt like, okay, maybe it just feels small because you were drinking like when you were watching it. But no, it felt just as small when I was sober. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the Batmobile is driving down what, like a quarter mile of street every single time, and it's basically the same street.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question for the two of you.
But I'm wondering, like, did Tim Burton do that on purpose? No, I'm wondering, did he do that on purpose? That feel? Did he want that 1950s newsboy feel?
See,
of it. Like you're talking, all those movies that were filmed back then, they were filmed on those lots.
Right.
Yeah.
He filmed the exact same thing. He filmed it. I mean, it was colorized, but it was dark. And I'm wondering if that's what he was going for.
Yeah, it could be.
I'm not 100% sure, but that, like, I guess to like placate myself throughout the movie, that's what I let myself feel. That's the setting that I'm going to be in, and I'm just going to ride with it.
Yeah. It also is sort of a, like, I mean, it's a dark reflection of it, but it's kind of an homage to the 60s, whatever syndicated show, which would always just be, a couple of sets basically. And I think that he's in some way, like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not homage, but it's kind of a parody almost of that, where he's taking it into a darker area and like making it like more of like a noir type setting, but still like injecting those elements of campiness into it to kind of, so you can never take it fully seriously. Maybe it is just like a big fuck you to the fact that he's making a sequel to the movie and didn't want to do it. Just getting some money so he can make I don't know, Ed Wood or something.
I forget what I read, but it was some ridiculous amount of money that this movie grossed overall. I mean, he almost made his money back in the first weekend.
Yeah.
For this, it was crazy.
Yeah, it ended up making $266 million off of the estimated $65 to $80 million budget. So it certainly, for the time period, had a decent return to it.
That's a crazy return.
But I don't remember being excited for it.
I think I was a little. I was really heavy into Burton at that point, though. So,
what's odd is I don't remember.
I enjoyed.
Oh, go ahead, Zeke.
No, I was saying I always enjoyed Tim Burton.
Yeah.
So I'd have been right there, but I know I must have seen this at the theater. There's no way I didn't. But I don't remember any excitement. Whereas the original Batman, I was there opening weekend with the t-shirts and everything.
Yeah.
Right.
It was the same for every other Tim Burton movie that came out back then. But this I don't remember. It's really bizarre. I don't know if I blocked it out or whatever, but I don't remember this at all.
The only thing I had burned in my memory was from childhood when I saw this in the theater was the very beginning of this movie, which was Paul Rubens taking the baby and putting it down the water. That's the only thing I like really remembered and like is like I could recall that scene in my head. Other than that, I didn't remember any scenes from this movie until I rewatched it. When I saw it, it was like, oh, right, I remember this now. But like, if you would have asked me before watching it again to recall something, that's the only actual image I could recall from this movie. Which probably says a lot about how I felt about it at the time as something disposable, even though I didn't probably know the word disposable in that context or, you know, in relation to a movie back then. But I must have felt that way when I was 12 or whatever seeing this, is that I didn't think much of it or I was confused by it. I wish I could remember more. I'd love to be able to know like if I understood the sexual innuendos back then or, you know, or what I really thought of it back then, but I just don't. I do want to ask a question though, both of you, because I'm still confused after watching it twice now, is, am I supposed to feel bad for the Penguin at the end?
No. Why?
The film seems to suggest that I should feel bad in some way.
I mean, he's been
I agree.
An absolute monster the entire time though, right?
Sure. Agreed. But the film suggests by his march with the Emperor Penguins into the water that somehow I should feel bad for him. I think, right? That's what it suggests.
I think that I feel the same way. And I was upset by it. I mean, you didn't have any, but I mean, the whole time the Penguin is being used anyhow. The
Right.
Penguin was never really a flushed out bad guy. Because even at his evilest, he was still being used by Shrek.
Mm-hmm.
He was always being a pawn to somebody.
Right.
So I guess you are supposed to feel bad for him that he didn't get to fulfill his evil, you know, dreams.
Right.
Yeah, and it is interesting, like, yeah, because it's like there's this element that it's like he's so gross the entire time, but at the end suddenly it's like you're supposed to feel bad for him, and it's like, and like I kind of thought the same thing as you see, because like, right, like, I mean, I guess he's a pawn, like he didn't really, and not even that he didn't get to fulfill his plan, but that he was this kind of tossed aside baby who somehow survived and grew up to just be this resentful, gross monster that comes from the underground and then is manipulated his entire time. And it's like, I could see the potential there to feel bad for him, but I don't think that the way the character behaves in it.
Right. I want to point out that the Penguin says at one point, I want to show her my French flipper technique.
It is. I mean, it's grotesque. That's what I'm saying, Frank. Yes, he's grotesque, but it's like they were writing. It's two different ideas. It's like there's this like, it's like you made him too grotesque and monstrous.
Yeah.
For that ending, it's a failing of the movie. Like ultimately,
sure.
But like, why would you not know the movie that you're
making? There's nothing redeemable,
right? Why would you ever think that ending still works? of this, you know, watery like descent into the abyss, like being carried off by emperor penguin pallbearers. Why would you ever think that would work given what you filmed already of this movie? Like it's inane. Like it shows that you don't know what you're making.
Yeah. For once, going to jail would have been better.
Right.
If he would have went to jail, it would have actually been somewhat better for him.
Yeah.
That we wouldn't have felt as bad for the gross guy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, usually I'm the soft one, but I did not feel bad for the penguin in this movie. I don't know. I didn't feel bad for anybody.
Really, he could have died and not had that last sequence, and you wouldn't have cared anymore.
Right.
After all the explosions, we didn't need any of that ending with the penguins and everything taking him into the water. I was satisfied with him being dead before that.
Sure. Yeah. That's what I'm asking.
That's how the movie was done.
Yeah, that's why I was asking the question. I don't understand it.
Yeah. There was no reason for any of that ending. Except, I don't know, for them, I guess to pull your heartstrings. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Burton sitting there. I'm at a loss. That's why I was asking, because I'm just at a loss of who decides to try to tack that, like, kind of sappy, why don't you feel bad for this gross thing? And I don't know who makes that decision. That's why I was asking. Makes no sense to me.
I don't know. Tim Burton's all about those friggin' circus freak weirdos and trying to find like redeemable qualities to him. So,
but most of the time he's successful to some degree in finding those qualities at times, like this.
Right, because Edward Scissorhands is like at heart a decent like being. But do you feel bad for Beetlejuice when he's sitting in the waiting room at the end? Like,
no, of course not.
Right.
But so that's also done for comedic effect.
I think the penguin thing is too.
Oh, I don't know about the way he films that, Frank, with those like emperor penguins walking out.
I don't think he's done for that.
Slow procession down into the water. I don't think it's for comedic effect. I think it
made me laugh.
I think it's too solemn. Like I think it's there to try to make you.
He pulls the fucking umbrella out. I pulled a silly one. Like, what are you supposed to do but laugh at that? That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's like he realizes how ridiculous he is. Like Penguin's thinking at that moment, why did I have silly umbrellas ever? They all should have been deadly umbrellas. Like, what was I thinking? I don't know.
But he does that in the TV show too, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I think it's a joke. I think that whole character is a parody of how ridiculous the characters are on the TV show. And it's kind of why Catwoman sort of ruins it in a way, because she just becomes like this overly complex, like, love interest for Batman, where she's the one that you're supposed to feel bad for. And then, obviously at the end, she's not dead anyway, but.
Well, that's a weird thing too, where they make you try to sympathize with her. I don't know how much I ended up sympathizing with her in the first part of the movie before she's killed, but they try to make you sympathize with her as this downtrodden, beleaguered secretary who is trying her best to put out a million fires and can't, and is alone and doesn't have anybody to go home to where she has to make the joke of, honey, I'm home. Oh, that's right, I'm not married, and has all of her cats. And they try to make you feel bad for her. And then suddenly she's this overly sexualized person who is making innuendo herself. And then they just turn her into not a femme fatale, but just I don't get it. It's like, it's like you're supposed to feel some sort of sympathy for her as a woman in a man's world who isn't allowed to have a voice, isn't allowed to have her own ideas. And then it's like, let's put her in latex and lipstick and have her try to fuck Bruce Wayne and make sexual innuendos. And
she's genuinely attracted to Bruce Wayne. I mean, it's weird because it's like, it's a man's misinterpretation of what feminism is.
Right.
Is what Catwoman is.
Yeah.
Like, it's a dude saying like, yeah, this is feminine and feminist empowerment, and not having any clue as to, like, what that should look like on screen. So you get this weird ass fucking dominatrix fantasy thing going on.
Right.
In a movie that's already way too hypersexualized.
Yeah, I didn't even look at it
and
like
creepy.
that.
I mean, I think it's supposed to be like, it's turning the, what's her name, the lady that played Catwoman in the 60s, Eartha Kitt. Yeah, it's turning that character on its head, where it's like sexual but with a purpose, but he doesn't understand what that purpose is supposed to be, so it just ends up being, I mean, she says it herself, she's kind of a bitch about stuff, like, except when she's with Batman and Bruce Wayne, when they realize that, who each other is.
Yeah, so I did see a quote here, and I was able to find it again, where the guy that came in to do the rewrites, Daniel Waters, says that Sam Hamm, who wrote the original script for this, went way back to the comic books in general that treat women like fetishy sexual fantasy. I wanted to start off just at the lowest point of society, a very beaten down secretary. So apparently the rewrites is like Waters trying to reestablish this character of why she would become Catwoman, but I'm assuming there's parts of the original script and parts of what he wrote, and they just don't jive very well to me.
Well, because the problem is her becoming Catwoman isn't because of anything that she thinks or feels. It's because she gets pushed out of a friggin' window and a cat nibbles on her finger, like,
right.
I don't know. It doesn't even make any sense. It's almost like Deus Ex Machina for, well, now I'm a Catwoman. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't really, a cat nibbling on your finger after you've died, which is very likely my end at some point, someday here soon, is it is like, it's not like a spider biting you and you turning into fucking Spider-Man. Like, I mean, I kind of get the joke, I guess, right? Like the kooky cat lady like dies, and like, the cats like start eating her or whatever, and then she turns into fucking Catwoman. Like, there's definitely a joke there, I guess, to be made, but it also doesn't jive with this fake feminist message that I think that,
right, because the genuine origin of Catwoman is legitimately more interesting than any kind of like pseudo Spider-Man, bullshit, which is, she's a fucking cat burglar that dresses up in a costume that hides her in the dark and is kind of like Robin Hood for these prostitutes and, like, poor people in Gotham. And you still could have done something similar to that and had it work. Especially because she could have been against Penguin the whole time anyway, because he's just like a force of chaos or whatever. I don't want to rewrite fucking Batman Returns, but
that's the problem. It needs to be rewrote.
Right. They need to scrap all of it and just write a new script, maybe.
Yeah, that's it.
30 years later, I got you. I'm on it.
I guess they're doing that anyhow, aren't they?
I don't know what to think about. Are you talking about the Pattinson movie?
Well, I guess Keaton is supposed to be in there's another one going to be coming out. I read about it today. And Keaton's supposed to be reprising the role.
What?
Yeah, Keaton's going to be
but
in the,
I don't
in,
think
in the,
I think they do it to Pattinson.
Yeah, Keaton's going to be in the Flash movie that's coming out next year as
That's right. Yeah.
As Bruce Wayne?
Yeah, as Bruce Wayne. Yeah.
Here's the problem with the DC universe, and this has nothing to do with Batman Returns, because whatever, it's so far removed. Fucking cast some people and just stick with it.
Right.
You know, like, not every Marvel movie is a success, but at least, like, when you see Thor, it's always just Thor. Like, you don't gotta have, I don't know, whatever. It's so fucking dumb. Now you got me all angry. I was all excited.
Have you seen the trailer for the Pattinson movie?
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I won't.
Have you? So he has this like hair that just like, as Bruce Wayne, it just like flops over to the side.
I know.
And it's a scene. It's something. It's going to be a unique Bruce Wayne. I'll give him that.
I don't know. It looks like something out of a
I
fucking.
won't watch it.
You won't watch the movie or the trailer?
I won't watch any of it.
Okay, that's probably for the best.
Probably, yeah.
He looks like an extra in a Fine Young Cannibals like fucking music video. Like, I don't even understand.
That's very funny.
What's going on with like that look?
Yeah, it's really bizarre. It's a bizarre interpretation of what I've seen so far of the Bruce Wayne character. So
and it's basically just Batman Year One, which is a really good story.
Mm-hmm.
But it's in essence what they already sort of told halfway in the Nolan Batman movies. So I don't know.
I do want to ask this question about the Penguin. Is Dustin Hoffman was offered this role and declined it? And I'm asking I'm asking this for a very specific reason, because I'm trying to ambush Frank a little bit, because I'm pretty sure you fucking hate Dustin Hoffman, don't you, Frank?
I like him in certain things.
Mm-hmm. What do you like him in?
I like him in The Graduate.
You don't like The Graduate that much, though.
I don't dislike The Graduate. The Graduate's a movie Frank is indifferent to. Movie.
Okay. What else you like him in?
No, let's look up this motherfucker's filmography.
Sneakers? You like him in Sneakers?
No. I don't like Sneakers. Get out of here. I don't even know what Sneakers is. Are you talking about that movie from the 90s?
Yes.
You never saw Sneakers?
Yeah, I've seen Sneakers. I saw
that at the movies.
I'm being purposefully obtuse. I like The Graduate. I love Midnight Cowboy. Little Big Man is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I like Straw Dogs a lot. I like All the President's Men. I like Marathon Man. I just can't really watch it because it makes me really uncomfortable.
Marathon Man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That's about where the shit ends, I guess.
Yeah, but how do you estimate him in those movies exactly?
I mean, I think he's fantastic in Straw Dogs. I think he's really good in The Graduate. I think he's amazing in Midnight Cowboy. I think that's the role of his career.
Mm-hmm.
He's fine in Little Big Man. Oh, Lenny, he plays Lenny Bruce. He's really good in Lenny. He's good in All the President's Men. He's really good in Marathon Man.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you know what it is? It's motherfucking Kramer versus Kramer and Tootsie back to back. And then I just can't take him seriously after that. Because fuck Kramer versus Kramer and fuck Tootsie forever.
See, Frank, come on.
So at some point you just like lose any respect for Dustin Hoffman.
There's something about Kramer versus Kramer I just can't stand. Like anything involved with that movie. Didn't it win an Oscar over something that should have won an Oscar?
I don't remember those kind of things, but I can see if I can.
I'm gonna look that shit up because I'm pretty sure that's why.
So I mean, it won best. Hold on.
But is that Dustin Hoffman or is that the subject matter, Frank?
It's everything. I can't separate them.
So,
you see, I don't like the subject matter of the movie, and that's why I don't like the movie.
I don't like the subject matter either, but I just like, that's what I think of whenever I see Dustin Hoffman. I couldn't remember that Dustin Hoffman was in Midnight Cowboy, and Midnight Cowboy is one of my favorite movies of the 70s. And that performance specifically is one of my favorite performances ever, maybe. But I don't think of that as being Dustin Hoffman. That's just Ratso Rizzo. Dustin Hoffman's the mother-fucker in Kramer versus Kramer.
Okay, so
that's how good he is.
I found this right. Okay, so so Kramer vs. Kramer won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, and Best Supporting Actress for Meryl Streep. So that year was All That Jazz, Apocalypse Now, Breaking Away, and Norma Ray was up for Best Picture, and it won. So Apocalypse Now obviously should have won that.
What is going on with your voice? Are you doing that on purpose?
Me?
Yeah, you sound like Merman or something.
Oh,
Breaking away.
The audience is probably not going to hear that. The connection just became unstable for a moment. So Robert Benton, who I've never heard of before this time, won for Best Director over top of, again, Peter Yates for Breaking Away and Francis Ford Coppola for Apocalypse Now. Dustin Hoffman won over Jack Lemmon in The China Syndrome, Bad Choice, Al Pacino and Justice for All, Roy Schneider and All That Jazz, and Peter Sellers in Being There. So yeah, I don't know.
Robert Benton directed fucking Billy Bathgate and Nobody's Fool.
Oh,
and the 1998 Twilight, which is notable for being a terrible movie.
And partially being filmed in Cecil County, right?
Twilight was?
Yeah, so that's the Clint Eastwood movie, right?
No. That's Twilight is the one with
Vampire.
No, I wish it was that one. Twilight is an early Reese Witherspoon movie with
oh, never mind. I'm thinking of Absolute Power. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. That's the one that's filmed down at Turkey Point.
Yeah, that's it.
No, this is Paul Newman is like kind of a jack of all trades that works for this rich woman. And her daughter gets into trouble. Like her daughter's just like out of control. And she gets into trouble and Paul Newman has to help solve some mystery. I don't remember.
Gotcha.
Reese Witherspoon is naked in this movie for like 45 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So we of course stayed after work to watch it for that reason. It was a different time.
Right. It was that grand old time when women were not objectified. Yes.
No. It was 100% they were being objectified.
I'm saying that was the time when they were, right? They're not. Right. They no longer are.
I mean, not by me. So I don't know.
So that's not a Gene Hackman movie that can never get onto a list. Okay.
What, Absolute Power? They ain't get on no list ever, except for movies of Frank's never going to watch.
Well, he's in that too, isn't he?
He's in Absolute Power.
He's also in Twilight.
Is he?
Yeah. Are you confusing those two movies like I am?
No. I just don't remember Twilight at all because I think we walked out like
after
7 or 8
Reese
minutes
after she got naked.
She's an asshole to Paul Newman because he's like, hey, she's like having sex with her boyfriend and he walks in on him like unexpectedly on both parts. It's not like he was like trying to creep him or anything. And he's like, hey, I just had to fix the dryer. Like, you need to clean out the lint trap.
This is riveting. This is a riveting plot. Okay.
And she says, listen, Paul Newman, you're always just going to be the handyman. I ain't got to listen to you. And then that's it. Okay. End scene.
Jesus. Okay, so let's bring this back to wrap this up with Batman Returns. So, Zeke, thumbs up or thumbs down if you had to choose?
That's tough. I'll never watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody showed interest in watching Tim Burton movies, I would watch it again with them. But never again would I watch it.
Right. Okay, Frank?
It is like the most lukewarm, half-assed thumbs up ever. But with the same caveat, like, I'm never watching this movie again. But I appreciated the visual style. I thought it had some good performances. I thought it was risky in a lot of ways, which you don't really see that much in like a mainstream movie, especially like a big budget like blockbuster like that. And I think it's funny that we can talk about a movie that's a quote unquote Christmas movie in the same way that Die Hard is a Christmas movie, which is to say, not at all. So, Merry fucking Christmas, I guess.
Well, I never thought of this as a Christmas movie, first of all. It had snow, so it was wintry, and that's the only reason why I eventually chose this, and because I hadn't seen it. I knew since the theater.
Can I tell you what my favorite moment in this movie is?
Sure.
And I had forgotten about it, and when I saw it,
I'm glad that you have one.
I legitimately marked out is the Penguin is in the marketing office or whatever. I'm not even sure what that scene is. But they're like, let me tell you a joke. They're like, something, and your nose is gushing blood. And he's like, my nose is gushing blood. And then he just bites the shit out of his nose. Fantastic. It makes me laugh.
I didn't know where you were going with that, but yeah, as soon as you thought, I was sitting there joking, oh, I'm glad you have one. But it's do I have a scene that is memorable to me that I thought and made me laugh or do have any reaction? Yeah, it was that one. It's
I laughed
that his guy's nose off. Yeah.
I laugh really hard when he's walking down the steps, just eating that decimated fish that's falling apart in his, and he never stops eating the fish. As they're talking to him, and he realizes that people should be disgusted, he just keeps eating the fish. And people are like, "Yeah, Penguin, yeah, you're the guy. You're going to be our mayor." And Penguin's like, "Wow."
Yeah. Anyway, I can't remember who that. Yeah,
I didn't find any of that funny
then. It made me laugh really hard. Because that's the joke of it, right? Is that I don't know. The Penguin is really just. We're done talking about this movie. I'm done. Made me laugh.
I can't remember who that actor is. I've seen him in a number of things. The guy that gets his nose bit, but he's just such a obnoxious, pompous dude, and he played that role extremely well all the time. And the little things I've seen him in. That
it always reminds me of the guy from They Might Be Giants. That's who I always think it is, but it's not him.
He was in a lot of those 80s movies, the late 80s movies. He was in a lot of them.
Yeah,
then it was the woman was from Saturday Night Live.
Right. Yeah.
Jan Hooks?
Yeah, Jan Hooks. That's it. Yep, Jan Hooks. Yep.
Yeah, Jan Hooks. Yeah, I was thinking Levy, but it was Jan Hooks.
Yep. And I was going to say Nora Dunn, but yes, Jan Hooks. Yep. So yeah, I can't remember that guy's name, but yeah, he's in a lot of stuff in the 80s and early 90s, and he's always playing that similar role. He either plays like a gay character that they never say is gay because it was the 80s or 90s, or he plays this kind of just guy who's always bowing down to other people and being slimy about the way he does it. But he always plays that role extremely well. And he's such just a scummy character that it made me laugh when he gets his nose bit.
Steve Whitting is his name.
Steve Whitting. Yeah, he was not on Wikipedia. I didn't want to go to.
I would never known that.
Because
he's been in a ton of stuff though.
Yeah, he's in a shitload of stuff.
Yeah.
51 acting credits and 1 directing credit. He's in Killers of the Flower Moon. So there you go. Good to see him this year.
Oh, shit. He's going to be in a movie this coming year. Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know he was still around, but
he's done he's never stopped acting. He does at least one thing a year, it looks like. Actually, it looks like he does about one thing a year.
Crazy. Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot.
He probably looks exactly the same, too.
His face is weird now. It's horseified, I guess, a little bit. I don't know, decrepit and like a horse is how I would describe it. That's it in his IMDb picture.
Well, you just ruined my dream of getting Steve Whitting to ever do this podcast.
I mean, he's still more important than us. So been in a lot of things I like. Zeke, do you say IMDb or do you say IMDb?
I say IMDb.
Do you say AT-AT or
I can't
AT-AT?
do the AT-AT.
Yeah, that's a huge point of contention between us and friend of the podcast, Ryan Wellmaker.
Why? What does he?
What does he say?
He says AT-AT, and his argument is: do you say ATST And I said yes, but that's because that's what it's called, and an AT-AT is called an AT-AT.
Yeah, I say AT-AT and ATST, but I say MDIB.
Well, you're just wrong on the AT-AT part. It's an AT-AT, man. They call it an AT-AT.
Yeah, that's in the movie, right?
Yeah.
So what? But here's I'll channel him for a moment, but it's like, what would you call in the movie if that's an AT-AT? What is and they call it an AT-AT, then what is an ATST?
They call it an ATST.
Okay, so they just reduce the amount of syllables. You know what? Maybe that makes sense. Who knows? Like, it's all the Empire's all corporate and everything, and will reduce the amount of syllables, like, as much as they possibly can. So, I mean, like, yeah, maybe that makes sense. Fuck it. You talked me into it.
I mean, I didn't write it, so I don't know what to tell you. But
all right, Zeke, thank you so much for joining us, and I guess kind of shitting on this movie ultimately. Because most everything we said was negative. It does look really nice though, for what it is.
It was a light shit. Let's
Oh right, yeah.
I couldn't go too hard on it.
Yeah.
You get me into the further ones, then it would have been really bad. Tommy Lee Jones, Val Kilmer, and all those, that would have been a massacre.
We talked about that.
This one I could deal with.
Did we?
What's that?
Didn't we?
Nah, we've never actually, Frank, talked about Forever or Batman and Robin.
But I
have
made
all
you,
fair, but
I made you watch.
You did Forever
because I told you that it's a really good movie ruined by being a really bad movie.
Yes, and I was so bored during COVID that I did it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a movie that if you make two or three changes to it, is probably one of the better superhero movies pre-MCU, but instead you get the hunk of shit that it is. So
yeah, I still don't know if I agree with you completely on that assessment, but well, maybe you know what? Maybe we'll do that at some point, like next year. Zeke is you'll rewatch. We'll just talk about the entire Batman trilogy or quadrilogy, I guess.
Yeah, if you wanted me to go off on something, they would be the ones.
Yeah.
You need to let me explain to you how it could be a good movie, though.
Yeah, well, that's what we'll do. Is we'll talk about that, and I have never actually seen the entirety. This is like a long held secret. I've never seen the entirety from beginning to end of Batman and Robin. I've seen like 75% of it, I think, at different points, but I've never seen the entire. So I've never actually sat down and watched that entire movie. So this would be the first time I actually sat down and watched Batman.
Yeah, I don't think I was coherent. I was probably staring at the screen, but there was no remembering when I did watch it.
Right.
I need to find.
It would definitely be a first watch.
I rewrote the script to this movie on my phone, and I can't find it now. Do you remember I texted you that? I was like,
I don't delete my text, so I can probably still find it. That's my guess.
Like
right, forward it to me.
I'm trying to find it right now. I was super into the idea that, like, yeah, you know what? I could make this movie good.
All right. So that's the deal. Then
Is this the one with Schwarzenegger or the one with Jim Carrey?
The one with Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones. It's so bad, man.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, well, I know.
All right. Zeke, thank you again for being on the podcast. Thank you again for supporting us for as long as you have, so early on. And again, good to see you. And I think that's a wrap, everybody.
Of course. All right. Hey, listen, I just want to say hi to my son Galen real quick, okay?
Yep.
Because I need to get him to be a fan of the show.
Yep. Galen. And does Galen listen to the podcast with you?
He will be soon.
Okay. All right.
Well, what's up, Galen? Good to have you. Good to have you on board.
Sorry I curse so much.
All right. All right. Sounds good.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, Zeke.
All right. See you guys.